at a certain time, and then I'm just going to stick around. So if y'all want to come up, and we'll throw masks on, and we can continue getting the questions and discussing and that sort of thing, because I really want to see some progress and clarity come out of tonight. Here's the deal. When I was at 242, speaking of emotions and their connection to vision, if you'll just indulge me for a second. We had just come out of our building campaign. It was the most, somebody was sharing with me just the miracle of this building and all that you guys have contributed to that. Leading our church through that process was the most grueling thing I'd ever done. 2, 3, 4 years of everything from fundraising to trying to figure out deeds and working with architects and things that, believe me, I kept looking back in my notes at seminary to figure out how to do interior design, and we didn't have any classes on that. So it was very grueling. At the end of the process, the church began to grow. And I'm sitting back and I'm looking at kind of that 30,000 foot view of all the numbers and the trajectory. And it was in that moment that I recognized that we needed to jump back into a building campaign to build again onto our building. Otherwise, we were going to run out of space very quickly. And I was exhausted and burned out. And in that moment, I had a thought. And the thought was, no one else is seeing this. And the truth is I could probably coast for about a year before anybody else started to say, hey, we may need to think about building more parking. We may need to think about more kid space. We may need to think about, this or that. And so for about 30 seconds, there was thinking in me that said, you know what? I'm just going to coast. And at that moment, I feel like God slapped me upside the head. And I don't hear the exact words, but about as clear as I could, it was, what if they were your kids out there? At that point, I had 3 kids. You think about, man, lose your kids at a mall, you lose your kids at a park, or that sort of thing. Would I be okay with 2 kids? No way. Father's heart is every child. And so for about 30 seconds, I was about to quit. I was about to say, no, it's too hard. And I really felt like God said, no. That is, if they were your kids out there, what would you do? And I really believe that what brought me to Willow Creek is that I really believe that I'm following God's will to be able to reach more people for Jesus. That's my heartbeat, and I'm not even an evangelist. But I want you to know that I'm standing up here tonight with a towel and a basin of water. I really want to serve this place. I want to serve all of Willow. I want to serve North Shore. But I will say this. I can't say that out loud with also thinking about people who are lost. And in my mind, that is why we're doing all of this tonight. I want to serve those people as well. I want them to know Jesus. People have asked me, what is your vision for Willow Creek? And that's a great question. I just don't think it's the best question. I think the best question is, what is Jesus' vision for Willow Creek? And when I look at Jesus, who tells 3 stories in Luke 15 to religious leaders, people that have been around for a while, people who were just following quickly, and lots of different people. And Jesus tells these 3 stories about a lost sheep, the shepherd leaving 99 to go after the one, and the lost coin. And Jesus says the woman leaves the 10 or searches all night and tears up her house to go after the 1 coin. And the father is scanning the horizon for his wayward son, who, when he sees him, man, you just imagine the religious leaders kind of, that father's going to go and shake a fist of judgment at that kid. And how surprising. No, the father comes and wraps his arms around that child and welcomes him home and says, come on back. And God is saying that is the vision. That is God's heart for this place. That's the vision. Question then becomes, how do we chase the vision? How do we chase Jesus' vision for this place? Give me a few more minutes and then we'll get to Todd. You'll hear this more this weekend. I'm going to give you as Cliff's Notes version as I possibly can, because some of you are here tonight. I talked to some people, they're just going, where are we going? Where are we going? What's next for Willow Creek? I made an acrostic out of the word next, because that usually makes my kids roll their eyes when I teach with acrostics, and I enjoy that very much. And so I made an acrostic. The N is for new spaces. Willow Creek is known for taking the most public space, the weekend service, and using that to reach, utilizing that strategically to reach lost people. Well, here we are 40 some odd years later. There is now a new, more public space, and that's the internet. And if the last 6 months have taught us anything, it is the power of being able to reach people online. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to have powerful in-person services, but man, the business folks are telling us, hey, it's not Amazon who's the retail king, it's not Amazon who's the online retail king, and it's not Macy's who is the brick and mortar retail king who's the best position going forward. It's the Walmarts and it's the Targets, because they have figured out how to engage people both online and in person. And we as a church need to engage people in that public space, that more public space. And so we're going to be moving toward investing resources and focus in what digital engagement can look like going forward. The E in next is everybody in a group, and every group on mission. If you add up the seating capacity of all of our buildings and at Willow, you may be surprised to hear it's like 20,000 seats. And that is remarkable. And there have been times when I've seen a couple people kind of proud of that. Man, we got 20,000 seats. That's our seating capacity. But that's just not the way I see it. I see us as having 20,000 sending capacity. Because I love everybody that we reach to get in a group, and I would love for every one of those groups to have both a component of growing and going. That every group ought to be raising up leaders. Every group ought to be raising people up in their spiritual maturity and helping them take next steps with God. And part of that is to say, okay, now let's go as individuals and as a group, and let's be the church where we live, work, and play. I love a come and see church. I think that's great. I want to invite people to come and see and hear about Jesus. But I want to be a go and be church as well. What you guys have done in compassion and justice is remarkable. I got to talk to your compassion and justice director a little bit this afternoon. The X in next is X factor multiplication. The truth is, new churches reach lost people at a rate of about 3 times as many as churches that are 10 years old or older. Now, what does that mean? That means that every church ought to be involved in church planting or campusing. And so, man, you guys are here because one day somebody said, hey, we ought to multiply our church. I love the idea of addition. We'll add many, many people to our existing 7 campuses, but we ought to also think about how do we launch new campuses as well. And I'd love to see us do that. Actually, in the next 2 years, the last campus we launched was 5 years ago. That's too long. So I'd love to see us in the next couple of years to plant a new campus of Willow Creek, hopefully in Naples or San Diego. But anyway, thank you. And then the T is this, together one church. One multi-ethnic, multi-generational, multi-campus church. I will tell you as an outsider, I think a lot of challenges that I've faced in the last 5 minutes has been because I'm new and I'm an outsider. But I will tell you one of the perspectives that I have as an outsider. Maybe you say, well, believe me, you're not telling us anything new. This is a very divided church. We are a very divided church. We are a church that has been divided over how leadership handled the last 2 years. We're a divided church over racial issues and how we respond to them or don't respond to them. The differences in the emails that we get on racial reconciliation and how we ought to be responding to that, it's just remarkable to me. And we're a divided church in that we've got 7 campuses that basically have different visions, different systems, different cultures, different. And so I love what Albert Tate said. We were on a Real Talk podcast, and he said, you know what, we need to come together. He said, listen, we don't follow the donkey, we don't follow the elephant, we follow Jesus, the Lamb. And I said, man, that'll preach. You ought to be a preacher. I believe we're better together. I believe we're better together. I think North Shore has so much to offer the other 6 campuses. And I believe the other 6 campuses have a lot to offer North Shore. And I believe together, we will do more for the kingdom, for reaching lost people back to that original vision of Jesus. After tonight, we're going to have continued dialogue and discussion about that vision in November. We're going to be talking, fleshing it out a little more detail with staff. In December, we're going to have some meetings. In January, we're going to come around to each campus and have worship and vision nights, and we'll get there. But let me stop for now, since part of what we want to do is have a dialogue. And let me just pray for us, if you don't mind. And then let us, I'll hand it over to Todd. Actually, you know what? I'll just go ahead. No, yeah, let me pray for us and I'll hand it over to Todd. Dear Lord, God, I just echo Amy's prayer. And then, Lord, I want to add just my own surrendered heart and mind to you. Lord, as much as I can call upon these people to join me in surrendering our hearts and minds to you, Lord, I pray that tonight this would be yours, and that you would bring about what you would bring about. Lord, help us to open up our spiritual ears, spiritual eyes to hear and to see from your Holy Spirit. I pray your truth will emerge, clarity will emerge. I pray that unity will emerge. I pray that love will emerge. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, Todd?
Thanks, Dave. Thank you, guys. Again, I'm going to share just for a moment. I know you didn't come here to hear from a guy from Huntley, so I realize that. But I just want to share 3 quick words that just reflect where I'm at. The first word is I'm grieving. As Dave shared, as Amy shared, I'm just deeply grieving. Amy probably hasn't told you this, but we were part of a church of 20 people that met in a middle school in Evanston 18 years ago. And we were just praying in our office a few minutes before this time, and we're like, who would have known that we would be at a place like this right now? And to have seen just Amy and her leadership and her love for Jesus and her pastoral heart, and just to see her in so many ways has just been such a gift. And I'm personally just deeply grieving that her season in this role is ending. And I know many of you are in that place, and yeah, I don't even fully have words to express my grief for that. I do also want to express my gratitude to you guys. Again, you probably also don't know this, but the vision that you have carried at North Shore has influenced us in the wild, wild west in Huntley. And I actually attended North Shore as my very first Willow home in the mid-2000s. So CHA 2005, 2006. Yeah, anyone? All right, a few of you, many of you. All right, I was not involved. I said no to all serving options. I literally just snuck in and snuck out. I was living in Evanston at the time. thought I had better things to do. I didn't, but I thought I did. I went from North Shore, I went to Chicago, I went to Barrington, I went to Huntley. If we do open a campus in Iowa, I'll probably do that. They just keep sending me further and further out west. But what I have experienced now in my leadership at Huntley is you guys have been pace setters in so many ways. Like, as we were building our home, we looked at what you guys did. There were these archives of these services that you guys did. The Next Chapter campaign, some of you may remember that. And I watched those like a dozen times and gleaned so much from how you served us. And then whenever you built this building, we had a chance to talk to Adrian Smith and his vision for this building, and even as we thought about our building in Huntley. And then as we thought about how to move in, the North Shore staff, which is the most hospitable staff in all of Willow, and without question, they got us, is it Noff Noff Grill? It was incredible. It was food that they don't make out in Huntley, I'll tell you that. It was incredible. They treated us like kings and queens, and we didn't deserve it. And they just gave us real talk about what it'd be like to move in to your culture in a building. And then whenever we were dreaming about doing our grand opening, I had the privilege of going to your grand opening service. I think I was actually one of the first times Amy had joined the team. And I was a part of that first service on the Saturday night and just watching people come in. And again, the vision at that time was grand opening wasn't a weekend, grand opening was a series. And I just know that God blessed you guys like crazy. It was all the month of Christmas. And just God did incredible things through that. And then just the growth that's come from that, I know, as Dave was talking, essentially just reaching people for Jesus, for people who are far from God. And so we did a series at Huntley, and similarly, we saw, we opened wide our doors over the course of a month, and it was incredible. So every time we had a problem, we're like, well, what did North Shore do? And you guys pretty much you just saved us, and you helped us. And so thank you for that. You probably didn't even know that. So I am grieving. I am grateful. And even in the midst of this heart, I do want to name, I am also really hopeful. I am hopeful. And this has been a very bumpy season, very bumpy 2020. And again, there have been a lot of changes as Dave and the new leadership has come in, and I have greatly enjoyed getting to know Dave and Tim and Chris and Haley and others, and getting to know their hearts to build the church, and getting to know their hearts for this multiplication vision to just impact the future. And in our team at Huntley, I know it's affecting each team a little bit differently. There have been a lot of things that get us really excited, and there have been some losses and some things that have been hard. So, like, some moments we're super excited and hopeful for the vision, and other times we're like, oh, this is going to require sacrifice. This is going to be difficult. And so there's been a blend of that, and I know the North Shore staff has felt that in a very deep way as well. And so I just know there's a lot of emotions, and whatever emotion you're feeling, whether you're feeling, probably most of you are feeling grieving. Again, I'm feeling gratitude and hopeful. I think you guys know there's space for all of that here tonight. And we just want to hear what you guys have to say. We want to hear your questions. And again, I know this isn't this isn't like the final word. This is an opportunity to begin a dialogue that's going to continue. So with that, I'm going to invite Tim Stevens, our executive pastor of campuses, and then we'll get ready for our questions.
Thank you, Dave. Real quick, we're going to move to Q&A here real quickly, but just want to talk a little bit about some of what I've learned this summer that is so special about this place. And thank you, by the way, I probably received 30 to 50 emails in the last few days, tried to respond to almost all of them. I'm a little behind since last night, but thank you for sending in your thoughts. But some of you have asked, do you realize how special North Shore is? And some of what I've learned here in recent weeks and months, Willow Creek North Shore basically rebuilt an entire village in Guatemala, along with a medical clinic high in the mountains. Doctors, maybe some of you at Willow Creek, mentored people on the ground there. It was amazing. Lots of ministry to hard urban places in Chicago. Pioneering ministry in Cambodia and Asia. Learning about the Jewish roots of Jesus in order to understand their faith so you can better serve your neighbors. Inviting so many friends to a mediocre auditorium at a private school for countless Christmas concerts, Easters, and events, launching Trunk or Treat for Willow, baptizing hundreds every year in maybe the most beautiful, moving, incredible baptisms any church has ever done, catching fire in a heart for worship that started about 10 years ago and that continues today, launching Safe Families at Willow, justice journeys for race issues, pushing that hard, screening movies to fight human trafficking before that was even a very well-known issue, building fair trade markets around Christmas to help people use their Christmas shopping as a way to help others, catching fire for evangelism through a series, I think several years back, called The Meaningful Life, giving so much love to a Holocaust survivor named Sam Harris, and investing in ministry to those folks. And the list goes on, and such a fantastic heritage of ministry here. And we want that to continue. That is our heart. Some of you have asked about kind of what's the interim plan. Really, right now, the short-term interim plan is care well for the staff who are leaving. Care well, take care of them. Care well for the staff who are staying. Care well, love on, care well for Amy in her last several weeks. She's here through the end of the month. And in that time, then figure out what is the interim plan, what's going to be appropriate for an interim campus pastor role, and then the permanent campus pastor role. And I want your help on that. Many of you that wrote me have been here 15, 16, 18 years since the beginning, since the first core group of 300 folks. You know this church way better than I ever will. So maybe even as you come up to the mic, you might say, hey, Tim, here's the type of leader that we think should replace Amy. And we're not going to replace Amy, but we're going to find a next leader to take us into the next chapter, the next season. So you might think about that, or shoot me emails. You all have my email address now, so shoot me emails of who should we be looking for, what questions should we be asking about the next leader for Willow Creek North Shore. All right, I'm going to ask Todd and Dave to come back up, and Todd will give us instructions on Q&A, and we'll just open that up.
All right, so now is probably the moment you've all been waiting for. We're going to get to just real honest questions and real honest answers. So for those of you who are in vehicles, you can text your questions to a number that was given before on your phone. And I think you should have those. If you don't, just let us know. We can get you that number. And then we have a mic right here. So for those of you who are here, please, you can go ahead and come up to the mic and start asking your questions that way as well. And here's the number. Thank you so much. It is 224-661-0401. 224-661-0401. It looks like we'll ask, and just a couple of ground rules. Again, we'd ask that you would have a respectful tone. We'd ask that you would just ask one question. And then, we'll and above all, let's just all have our heart sensitive to the Holy Spirit, how He wants to move and lead and guide during this time.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah, you bet.
Let me just introduce a couple people, because we may pass the mic to them and ask them to answer some questions. So Haley Bodine's here. She's in the front here, and she basically runs Dave's office and a large part of his life. And then Chris Hahn is sitting there. He's the executive pastor of ministry, so he's also working alongside me with all of our campuses. And Matt Sunstedt here is our executive pastor of operations, so sometimes financial questions need to be pitched to him because he knows a whole lot more about us. And we have several elders here as well, some that attend here, I think some that attend other campuses as well. So elders, don't be surprised if we pitch a question to you.
All right, thanks, Tim. All right, we'll begin with the gentleman right here, if you want to come to the mic and ask your question.
Well, welcome to the North Shore congregation. Dave, Tim, exec team. Welcome to our campus. I don't have a question. I just wanted to honor those that we have served this church in our congregation. And if you look around, this is the first time we've been this much together since March. And so I think that our staff need to see and hear our appreciation for them, as a lot of them are going to be leaving us. And as a congregation, let's show, if you're in your cars, you can cheer as well, but let's show our staff our appreciation.
Yes, welcome, Pastor Dave, Tim. And first thing I'd like to say is I love your vision. The vision is splendid. It reflects your heart, and it's in sync with our scriptures. There's nothing to be taken away from it. In the Q&A that you distributed to us, you identified converging realities, things that we all need to be mindful of. Tim, you've just detailed the accomplishments of compassion and justice in so many ministries. And you're celebrating, essentially, what has been years of accomplishment. And yet, you don't trust this leadership to rise to the occasion that the current times, current realities call for. Why is that? Why is it only your people in South Barrington are able to lead as is needed, and there's nobody here that can step up and bring the same creativity that made it possible to get us here through the future? I don't understand that.
I think those beeps were in support of your question, not in my standing up to answer. Listen, I think it probably is probably just a misunderstanding of what the model is. The idea is that that this team is not handing down philosophy, decisions, things like that. The idea is to bring everybody together. And so the leader of this campus would come together and speak into the direction of the entire church, as well as the entire group speaking into the direction of this church. And that really happens at every department level. So rather than have somebody that is, let's say, a student pastor at the center, which, by the way, is not South Barrington. South Barrington is just one of the campuses in this model. That student pastor would convene the student pastors from all the campuses and say, hey, how do we share best practices? How do we support each other? How do we find efficiencies? How do we make sure that what we're doing? And when things come up in regards to, hey, you know what, the students at our location are different. The culture here is different. To begin to have that question in an informed way as to when we contextualize for that campus or not contextualize for that campus, if that makes sense.
Adjust the plan based on the location.
Just one point of just word. Those of you in your cars, I was told that if you could limit honking, again, not my telling, but they say that people could call the cops, and that could not be good. So this is what has been told by me. So we do appreciate your enthusiasm, but just limit flashlights and lights. I don't think they'll call cops if you flash your lights. It's probably another way to do it. I'm going to go with, speaking of people in their cars, here is a question that was texted in. Willow Creek North Shore has made a clear statement on their stance against racism. Will the new senior leadership also be vocal in their stance against racism?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly, this is your win. Honestly, I've been really appreciative of the plan that you've put together in conjunction with the rest of the executive team. Can you share some of the things that we're doing to combat racism?
Yeah, absolutely. So we came in, Dave and I, our first day in the office was May 15th. And I could be wrong on the date, a day or two, but I think it was May 26th when George Floyd was murdered. And so this became instantly an elevated topic for us, for the staff, for people in the congregation. Lots of people of color with very traumatic stories to share and for us to hear on staff and throughout our overall church. And so we jumped into this pretty fast. It's interesting coming from the outside, looking at a church that I learned was 67% white or 33% non-white. And from the outside, it's like, and I've worked with hundreds of churches, thousands of churches across the country. It's like, that's one of the most multi-ethnic churches that I've worked with. But then realize there's so much pain behind that and stories behind that. So we started this summer just having lots of conversations with staff about this, conversations about, we have a gap in our staff. I said our congregation is 67% white. As of May, it's probably changed. In May, it was 83% white, our staff was. So there's a gap there that we instantly or quickly began to talk about how do we close that gap, what's with our hiring practices or whatever. The other thing that we did is we just started a journey of education with our staff. So we partnered with an organization called World Vision, you're all aware of them, and they launched basically an educational program for pastors and for church leaders as it relates to racial reconciliation. And some of you know Dr. Soong Chan Ra, who's local here at North Park, and he is one of the leaders of that. Reverend Sandra Van Opstel, who maybe she's been on some missions trips with some of you, is the second person, then Ephraim Smith, who's an African-American church. He's spoken here at Willow years past. The three of them are heading that up. It's an educational process. We've done one session with our entire staff. It's an all play. 270 plus of our staff are going through this together, all of our campuses, and we're learning and we're having discussions and dialogue, and Dr. Soong Chan is leading that, and we're doing that together to learn more about how we can meet the needs of our communities and how we can make sure that becomes a topic that doesn't go away.
Also identified a diversity champion on our executive team. So that person can make sure that we're not just pursuing compassion and justice out there, but in our own church as well.
My name is Jenny Rowan, and I've been here at North Shore for 2.5 years. I have a question for you, and I also have one for you and Tim. You said in the Site magazine interview that you gave on June 16, 2020, that image management has been a big part of the culture here, and I think we're finding that authenticity is a much better way to win credibility with people. But you and Tim both came in during a time when North Shore was under the COVID-19 pandemic. How can you make the distinction that the culture of Willow, including North Shore, was that of image management? At North Shore, we would argue that authenticity and credibility were not only lawn in place in our campus culture, but also practiced and exemplified for us by Steve Gillen and Amy McCall's leadership. Wouldn't it have been better to have gotten to at least know what the church community here at North Shore thought before making assumptions and changes without our input?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. So we were speaking to National Magazine. Is that what it was? A magazine?
That you give.
It was so National Magazine. And the image of Willow as a whole is that in the last 2 years that there's been a lot more focus on image management, and that's why you had a hard time getting through the scandal, or it's part of the struggles of how you got to the scandal, and it's also part of the struggle of how you got through it. And so what I was trying to do is cast a vision that for us as an entire church, authenticity is a value, is going to be a value over image management. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. Thank you for clearing that up.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go to the questions that are being texted. Pastor Dummit, in the FAQs sent out today, blame was first placed on the North Shore staff for not properly communicating. Even with the current model in place regarding staff, you are at the helm. You apologized after placing the blame in your letter, but you don't explain your role. Why did you not step in months ago and communicate to all the campuses?
That's good. Yeah, that is my failure. The failure is this: when I came, we were looking at these lead pastors that were basically folks that we knew had all the credibility in their campuses, and yet we were trying to bring unity and lead this whole thing. I think what we were trying to do, and where the error is for me, was trusting in an effort to communicate to our lead pastors, hey, we don't want to micromanage you. We do want this to be a collaborative environment. And my failure was not following up with lead pastors, now called campus pastors, to say, hey, how's the communication going? What's the feedback you're getting? Hey, I understand that, I haven't been at that campus yet. I need to get out there to be at that campus. I think I took too passive a role in that, and I think that's led to part of why we're here. So I think I should have stepped in and followed up more.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi. For me, it's kind of hard to listen to this new vision when we started here and we had a great vision and we killed it. And now you guys are saying it's not working. And from my view, it was working. So that's one thing. So you're saying it, I'm hearing it, and I'm like, we bought in at the beginning when there was 300 people, and look what's happened, and you guys are saying it's not working. So I'm not really buying that. But, I see people that I've served with here leaving this church, like a lot of great people leaving. But really the biggest question I have, because there's people in this church that have served us, that work for Willow, that we're never going to be able to replace. They are amazing. And I just want to ask Pastor Dave, do you feel like God is happy with the way you've treated these special people and how they've been let go? And I don't. And there's so much grief, like you guys are saying, but the grief to these people that we love is you put Steve, it's horrible. You put Amy, it's horrible. You put Bill, it's horrible. But I can't even go into Promised Land and not see Wes there. There's just no way. So I don't know how you let these guys go.
If I communicated to you that I thought North Shore's vision wasn't working, then I did not communicate well. What I would communicate is that I think we're better together. I think North Shore can do better. I think we can all do better together. So that's what I would say about the vision. And in regards to how we are caring for your staff, I think there's probably two categories. There's one is the category of the layoffs. That's 9 FTEs, 13 positions. I think, Matt, you may want to speak to this, but it's about $2 million worth of staffing savings that we're accomplishing in doing that across the church. That does not get us where we need to be, really even close for 2021. So we are already planning. It just does not balance the budget, and so
I get the financial part. You have to make cuts. It's a business, even though it's a church. It's a business, but that's not the part I'm having trouble with. I'm having trouble with the really good people that are leaving because of all the stuff that's happening, and we've all hung on here, and then I just feel like they got run over, and that's upsetting.
Yeah, so in addition to the layoffs, we have 10 staff people that are opting out. And why there are 10 people opting out at North Shore when there are only 6 people opting out in the rest of the entire church, I do not know.
Really?
And we have got to figure that out.
Wow. It's a team. Some of them are spouses. Are you kidding me?
No, I don't know. I asked them today and they didn't tell me.
I would say it's multiple reasons. I've met with all of them. I think I've met with all of them. And so when we offered the opt-out, I think this was in our FAQ tonight, we asked people to just like and this was across all of Willow, every single staff person. If you're tired, if you're burned out, if you are already thinking about a transition, and we've had some folks say, you know what, I was thinking about something already, so this package gives me an option for that. So there's a lot of reasons. There's people that are frustrated with us as leaders. There's people that are frustrated with the vision as they understood it. There's a lot of different reasons in there, and but you can't really ask us why they're leaving. You have to ask them individually, and you'll find different answers and some same answers.
All right, next question, texted in. In the midst of a worldwide pandemic, streaming our North Shore services on Sunday mornings is one of the only things connecting and restoring us in these challenging times. Will you guarantee that North Shore will be allowed to keep our own Sunday morning worship services with our own worship team?
I would say that's our plan, absolutely 100% the plan. We don't know who's left on staff to pull it off, so we'll have to play that by ear. But we have no intention of worship from other campuses being piped in to any other campuses. We're planning for the long term to have local worship led by people from your congregation and campus. There's never been a plan besides that. So did that answer the question? Yeah.
Next question.
So I have a question specifically, in the FAQ you distributed, you talked about the fact that all the campuses have been paying roughly the 3% of the money for administrative fees and things like that. But we know here in the North Shore that we have contributed a lot, and we know that we thought we were about 85% of budget for this year. And so the concern where the FAQ says that a majority of the money will stay here, but not all the money necessarily that's brought in here, that still seems to us like we're going to be supporting a lot of those campuses. And 51% here when we have, as Tim stated, all those unique and special ministries that were started here by the North Shore is really tough to see that position and where it goes. What you're feeling tonight is a little bit of the North Shore pride, because if you think about it, when this all happened with Bill, we had just got into this building and we went through that struggle, and then Steve stepped up and went to help, at Barrington, and Amy stepped up here for us. So you see, for us, we've not only strived, we've survived, but we thrived here. And so there is a little bit of North Shore pride here about what we're doing, and we feel like we've done a lot for Willow. And so we're a little bit caught off guard by everything that's happening. And so my question really was is the money going to stay here or is it not? And how much is really going? And then two, I really have to ask yourselves, to the question, Tim, that you just tried to say, if it's 38% that got laid off and another 31%, 69% of our staff, 7 of every 10 decided to leave. That speaks volumes to us for the people we know that are dear to our hearts who are not staying to be a part of what Willow looks like in the future.
To your question with the financial model, there is, so our goal, my only hesitation is we have a goal, and I know how, I'm always going to lean toward transparency, but I know how that can become a promise that later on comes back to bite. You know what? I just want to call us to try and be respectful of each other with our call outs, and maybe that's not my role, but I tell you what, I'd love for our hearts to be in the right place even if we disagree. The financial model our goal is about 80% staying at the campus, 20% not going to South Barrington, but all campuses contributing 20% toward that core team that's serving the campuses. And then about each campus contributing about 10% toward whatever future campuses or future missions or future endeavors that we're going to do together. that 10% is probably a real buffer at this point, because with our financial situation, we may not get there. And Matt can speak more specifically to the model, but that's kind of the goal that we're working with, the model that we're working with right now. It's kind of an 80-20.
All right, next question. If we decide as a North Shore congregation that we do not want to be part of this new centralized model because it does not reflect our values, do we have an option to opt out and separate from Dave and his new Willow?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at I did a young adult ministry in Cincinnati. That was, they brought me in and to reach young adults. The launch of that, we were about 25% of the church. We brought in more money than we spent, and we started growing out of space. And I'm going, I need to reach lost people, and the church isn't giving us space. I need staff. I'm bringing the money in. They created this church within a church, and it was kind of an odd structure. But very quickly, what began to happen were people in our little church within a church that are saying, listen, the big deal is causing issues. They're hampering our mission, and we're busting at the seams. We got all the money we need. We got all the people we need. Let's just go down the road 10 minutes, and we'll do our own thing. And at that point, I'm imagining, wow, I have a lot of frustration right now with how things are going. I would just tell you, to me, I felt called to be a church planter, but not a church splitter. I just didn't think God would bless it. Now, y'all are able to do whatever you vote with your feet in your pocketbook. I don't have any power over you. I will tell you that I feel like we're better together. I will also say that there have been times when I have released, like in our last church, where we launched out something that I thought was going to be a campus of ours. I actually launched it out, put it 10 minutes down the road, gave it $100,000, had the guy come up and preach and take as many of our people with you. Listen, if I felt like that would serve, if an independent church would best serve the kingdom, and you have no reason to trust me, but I'll just look you straight in the eyes and say, I would do that. I just think we're better together. And I think Tim and I have discussed this too. Like, we're pretty committed to doing this model for the next 4 or 5 years. And we get 4 or 5 years down the road, and that opinion changes. I'll be the one championing a vision of somehow taking the whole thing and making it church planting. We're going to make them all church plants, and they're all going to go out, and then they're all going to, So I'm open to those things at this point. I'm the one, and the elders, that's the call we have right now.
Next question.
My name is, can I take? Okay. So my name is Cliff Nelson. Dave, I appreciate the fact that you came up, introduced yourself. I shared a little bit about my heart. You did too. I started attending Willow in 1997, introduced to the new community midweek service. I immediately fell in love with the vision, the mission, and the core values of Willow, which unbelievably are still the same as stated on our website today. So I don't necessarily disagree with any of the vision, but I have seen, I was one of the original first 100 participating members here. I have seen what God has blessed, ordained, sanctioned. I've seen 50 ministries established at this church locally, globally. You guys have already said that. And, but I really took offense at some of the statements that you guys made on Sunday, implying that we were less than a healthy church.
And you've already said, we've always been good financially. We've always had income more than budget. Our end of the year giving has always been fantastic. We supported Chapter 2 wholeheartedly when South Barrington chose to expand their campus. We sent off maybe something like 150 people to help start South Lake. We did a tremendous campaign here. You guys have already mentioned that, but my spiritual home has been here. And I told you, Dave, that home is people. It's how you love people and how each one gives. And I've served in 9 ministries here, and I co-founded and I co-lead cancer care ministry right now. I see what God is doing, and having all this staff leave, I'm not grieving. I'm really pissed. And after listening, again, I have no problem with the vision. The problem is with the model. And since you took, it's my understanding, there's been no communication. You didn't even meet with our Leadership Advisory Council until the day after you let go of the first people. And I know they presented some things to you. And I guess my question, and my heart is for this church, but the church is all these people that are sitting here right now. And, unfortunately, I can't trust you guys. And I don't know what our options are going forward. We don't have a legal leadership team to even negotiate anything with you at this point. It's all top down. You didn't listen to our staff. You didn't attempt to meet or talk to any of our laity and understand who we are as a community and how close we are. So I don't have a question for you. I've heard enough. And as much as I hate to ask this, I would ask for the community here gathered tonight, if you're in favor of standing in solidarity with our church staff, rejecting this strategy. It's not really a vision, but to me it's really a strategy. And to begin to pursue withdrawal of this church, from which that grieves me that we would have to come to that kind of decision. But if you're in favor of these kind of actions, I would ask you to stand, turn on your lights, but don't honk.
I encourage you all to look at a model and experience it. I think there are seasons. I think there are seasons when you come to a church for a season. I think there are times when that's a season. So here's the thing. I think you want to make the most informed decision possible. I think if you left right now before you experience the model, I don't think that would be the most informed decision. I also don't think it's a huge win. I think Satan would be pretty pleased with that.
All right, next. And again, guys, let's try to be respectful. Again, we definitely want to hear and have appropriate conversation, but please, I was reading, not to preach, but I was reading Romans 12 today, and I think when we go home tonight, let's just say, did we have all this conversation in light of what our Lord teaches us to do that? And we can continue to disagree, but let's do it in the way that the head of the church would ask us to do it. So thank you for that. The next question that's been texted in is, With the removal of so many women in key roles, will the move to a centralized model include placing women and minorities in key roles? How many minorities will be part of the 18-member executive team? How many women?
Yeah, so you guys know Willow history pretty well. Matt educates me every day. He's been here for 20 plus years. And we've had an interim season here that's been a little bit different, but if you back up to 0.5 years ago, whenever pre-scandal, the executive team was very small. It was all white, and for history had been all white, but was men and women, a good diversity between men and women. Abuse of power, scandal, all of that happens. What we're trying to do is expand the executive team. So we're going to have 18 people when it's all filled out on the executive team. Already has 3 women on it, already has 1 minority. We anticipate both of those numbers will increase when it's all filled out. But one of the reasons for the expanded model is for more accountability and less. Someone called me last week from North Shore and said, you know, the greatest potential for abuse of power is no longer Willow Central because that's got a lot of eyes on it and governance, whatever. It's Willow campuses. And what we're trying to do is provide more support, more resourcing from a lot of people, from an entire executive team at the campus level. And yes, it will reflect, and does, gender diversity and ethnic diversity, both at the executive team.
Next question.
Yeah, hi. We have an interesting relationship with between our lead pastors and the elder board, and that, you know, in the past caused the entire elder board to resign and 2 other pastors to resign. I would like to hear if there was complete unanimity in the decisions on the elder board to go along with this new vision.
I could pitch it to Jeff, if you'd be willing.
Putting you on the spot, Jeff.
I don't. Part of that vision document that I sent you guys.
This is kind of be a little off the cuff because I didn't discuss it with the entire elder board, but we interviewed 12 candidates throughout those 6-7 months in face together, and except for 1 candidate who came from a single campus, all the other candidates had multi-campus models, and they had a similar type of model that we're describing tonight. So when we voted to pick the pastor, that sort of came along, the model came along. And it was in unity. We were all unanimous. We decided if there was 1 objection, that we would not go with with that candidate. So the answer to that question is yes.
All right, next question that was texted in. In searching the internet, I came across Dave's name with a company called Generis. It states that he's a generosity strategist. I noticed that Sean Williams is a part of this group with the same title. Sean shared this past Sunday about the greatest giver in a 3-month giving opportunity coming up, concerned that this might be a conflict of interest. What are Dave's thoughts?
Yeah, both. So my position there is resigned. If it's still on the website, that's an oversight. So that was one of the things when I came on at Willow. I'm not a part of that organization anymore. It was basically a generosity consulting firm, so coaching other churches in how to do things. I think Sean has as well resigned from that position.
Next question.
Actually, my question was answered, but not completely. That was about the elders. So did the elder board completely agree with what's been going on in terms of people being let go? And if there was an issue financially, why weren't we given the opportunity to join in and to see if we could save the staff and to help out? As a result, I don't need to be told that I'm being disrespectful, because I don't think I am. I felt very diminished. I felt very disrespected, and besides all the hurt. And when you talk about unity, you have to understand we're kind of skittish, because this whole centralized office is what led Willow to its downfall. You have to understand, some of us have been here from the very beginning of the whole vision of Willow. And it was very centralized, very controlled, and it has that same feeling right now. And it's just, you know, even Paul talked to the slaves. He understood that there were different diversity and divisions. And I'm speaking as a biracial person, that there are certain things that cannot be centralized, because there's certain things that you would never understand what I've gone through. You would never understand. And I do think that having diversity, even within campuses, is important and healthy. And I don't think the church is I think most churches that are healthy are quite diverse. And what I am hearing though is, I'm not hearing, I heard you apologize, and I felt that about your leadership, but I'm not hearing that you're open to really rethinking this whole thing. Not maybe just tweaking your vision, but this whole thing about how you rolled out this whole thing with our campus, not coming here from the get-go, knowing, at least, I'm sure you heard the oral tradition about what went on here and how we really supported the main campus, and to get to know our staff. I don't even know if you really know who they are and their gifting and how committed they were, not only to God, but to the church. And there's one last question. Well, never mind. It's fine. I just feel like you just don't really get it. And that really, it just not only grieves my heart, it's a sadness that only the Holy Spirit can fill, because let me just tell you this. It's the same sadness I felt when I would walk to school with my sister, and they would tell her nigger child, and they would tell me I was a nigger lover. And that's how I feel how you've treated us here.
Those are strong words. I hear you. I'm sorry.
Next question was texted in. With the dismantling of our church family, how will senior leadership go about healing and building trust with congregants?
Man, how do you build trust? I think try to be leaders worth following and teachers worth listening to, and that will only come over time. You know, when you're introduced to somebody in the way some of you have been introduced to us, you start at a disadvantage, and I hope that we have the opportunity to build that trust over time. I don't think there's anything I can say right now that wins that trust immediately. So I think it's something that happens over time, and hope we get the opportunity to do that.
I would add to that. I've learned never, if someone resigns or decides to move on, I've learned never to try to talk them out of it. But that doesn't keep me from praying. And we gave our staff across all campuses till next Friday, October 16th, to decide on the opt-out for those that positions remained. And so I'm praying every day that some folks will change their mind. I know there's some others that are on the fence, and I'm praying, because I think the relationships will be best built and repaired by the leaders that you already love and care for. And then we can find others to replace the ones that do decide to leave.
Hi, my name is Anne. I've been here 17 years since the beginning. I have Stella. She's 7. Nancy has cerebral palsy. There is no group of people that did a better job supporting me and our family than these people right here and the staff in Promised Land. Mr. John and Mr. Wes saved my life that first year. People like Nancy Anderson and Jan Mostrom held my hand when I was embarrassed to walk in this church. I don't understand how you're going to replace that kind of support for our children, all of them who have grown up here. You just can't come in and expect to just move forward. People like Stella deserve the families sitting out here. She deserves people that know her. And if half of these people are gone and most of the staff is gone, who is going to know her? That's a question. That's a question. Who is going to know Stella? Or any of our children?
All of the Promised Land staff are not going to be gone, so some are staying, as far as we know today. And that's a tough question. I feel your heart. I feel your pain. And we're going to have to raise up new folks, new volunteers, new staff to replace those that there are positions for.
Next question. I'm surprised that you eliminated Brendan Lang's position. He has been an important role not only at North Shore, but across Willow with the Journey series. I would have thought this could be a position at corporate. It seems new leadership does not value this ministry. What was your reasoning?
That's a hard one. I talked to Brendan today. We had a time with the staff, and Journey was one of the early things that I talked with Amy about. That's such a strong thing. I hope that's something that stays, Willow. I wish that we had the finances. A position like that is a wonderful thing to have when you can afford it. I got to look Brendan in the eye today and just kind of say, I just really appreciate what he does. And if I were leading him directly, I'm saying, how do we figure out, is there a way that we contract this? Is there a way that we help you connect with 3 or 4 other churches so you continue to write curriculum? We cannot afford to have Brendan full-time right now, but are there ways that we can accomplish that value in a more efficient, less expensive way, but at the same time taking care of Brendan, and that's what we talked about today. It's a tough loss.
Sorry, I'm tall for my height. I came today excited because I had a lot of questions I was hoping you could answer, but I understand that we can only ask one question. I literally have prepared a lot. Is there any way you can show me grace and allow me to ask questions that maybe some of our family here is thinking but not asking?
give us at least a couple, and then we'll stick around later too. So we want to have everyone have a chance, but please do give us some. So go ahead.
Matt said I could have 3. Can I go with that?
Hey.
Okay, so
All right, go for it.
here's my first question.
You're killing me, man.
In regards to your response about Willow North Shore's finances, you said that today isn't the problem, I'm quoting. It's the trajectory that is concerning. I was excited to see that we were going to end the year in black. That's always good news. But you're concerned about the trajectory that is coming. And I'm just wondering, at what point does Philippians 4:19, where it says God will supply your needs, or Proverbs 3:5 and 6, where it says trust in the Lord with all your heart, or do we apply that scripture? Why the rush towards this centralization model that has impacted the jobs of our staff and the gaping hole in the body of Christ here? And I was just trying to understand, why was there a rush for this in this economy?
Yeah, I would say, or the 13 positions that were eliminated, part of those, probably more than half, probably 3/4 of those, was related to right sizing. Just as you look across the landscape of churches, we had about twice as many staff as churches our size. At North Shore, at South Barrington, pretty much every campus except for Huntley, which was understaffed. But the rest of them all had, and it's because 6 years ago we were a church that was 6,000 more people than we are today. So a lot of that was just had not been right sized yet. So that was going to happen regardless of vision, regardless of model. It had to happen, and the pandemic and the reality of donations going down at Willow, at all of our campuses except Huntley. Again, they've opened a building last fall, so they've still got some momentum with a lot of new people coming in. That just forced the speed, the pace. That was not our desire. When we talk about trajectory, we're talking about sustainability. You guys run businesses, you know this. So this year we're going to end in the black at all of our campuses, South Barrington included, North Shore included. But donations are down. Those probably aren't going to return because donations are down because people lost their jobs, people have retired, taken early retirement packages, people have moved for employment, and also it's the after effects still of the scandal and news that came out even late last year. So we know we're going to reopen our buildings, and expenses are going to go back up to where they were, likely. And if we had kept the staff where it was, that was going to be for sure true. And our revenues were not going to keep up with that. So it was just blinking light on the dashboard that we're charged with looking at and making those kind of decisions.
It seems like we're allowing the global pandemic to drive the pace of change. Although you say it's not a thing to be feared from the FAQ sheet, it seems like your actions and your decision making say otherwise. Why have you decided, ever since I heard about centralization, I've been studying it. And I'm just trying to understand, why did you choose this model? It seems really drastic. It almost seems socialistic or communistic in its approach. Why didn't we do like a centralization with a customization approach?
You guys want to talk about benchmarking? I'll let you and Matt talk about it. You guys did the work.
Okay, so great question. And so we're studying churches. There's not that many churches that are our size or larger. So it's not that many phone calls and meetings to do that. So Matt and I spent early part of the summer just talking to other churches that were as large or larger than us, and churches that were growing and that, at least best we can tell, are healthy. Compared against Willow, which overall was not growing, overall hasn't been healthy because of the scandal and the things that have happened the last couple of years. And there were some common things that were true at all of those churches, and we just began to look at that. And they lined up with a model similar to where Chris came from, Chris Hahn, our executive pastor of ministries, and similar to the model where Dave came from. And that is kind of, we call it the matrix model. And someone said it's not a vision. No, it's not a vision. It's a strategy. It's just a model that allows us to provide more resource and more support to not duplicate staff doing the same exact thing 7 different times, but to have those folks at the core that can provide resource, for example, Promised Land at all 7 campuses, or Impact or Elevate at all 7 campuses. So there's not a fear, and there shouldn't be a fear about the pandemic. It's actually exciting. There's going to be a lot of opportunity on the other side of this, but church is going to be way different than what we're experiencing now. Everyone we're talking to, these churches, folks that really study the church hard, it's going to be a long time before people return to our weekends, and we just have to pivot. That's not, the church flourishes when it suffers, when it's under challenging times. But we don't know what that is yet, and we got to financially be ready to pivot towards that.
All right, yeah, we have gotten beyond 8:30, so we're gonna do, again, we'll do one more question. Dave is gonna stick around as long as you want. So we will absolutely stick around as long as you want. And we know we want to honor your time, but we will also be around as long as you want to have questions be answered. So do you want to go ahead with your question?
Yeah, I've been here since it started, and we've always, I keep on hearing the financial issues from you guys, but you're not separating us versus the rest. There are a lot of problems on the other side. We are not meeting our budget goal for income, but we've always met it for spending. And you're not taking that in consideration. You're saying we're not meeting it, therefore cut. Maybe there are a couple cuts, but what you did is destroyed it. And I'm very worried that our young people, our junior high and senior high, have lost their relationships, and everything that in this web environment, the more you take away relationships, the less they will want church. And I've seen, even in the non-web, going through a number of problems and leaving other churches and all that because of problems, the kids forget about Christ. And you're not strengthening it. It's not coming in that way. So I think you have lost a generation at this church. I'm not sure where you're going. And you seem very set in your cement that you're not going to move, not going to change any of your strategy because of what you're hearing tonight. Is there any that you can talk about how you're going to keep the kids involved? Especially after we've lost so many.
I would say that's the key. I don't think, apart from the staff, and you understand that's a big deal here at North Shore. We're not experiencing that at the other campuses, but so the staff leaving is a big deal for our kids and our students. But not that much is going to change for student ministry or for kids ministry. We still are going to have local Promised Land pastors and Elevate and Impact pastors at our campuses that are pouring into the kids. We're going to have a team at the core that's going to be there to resource our Promised Land and Elevate and Impact staff. We're not going to have staff at the local level that have to create everything on their own. We're going to have them working together with all the other campus youth pastors, creating that content and working together, pulling those resources together. We're going to, I think, arguably at some campuses, I think at North Shore it's already off the charts, crushing it, but some campuses it's just going to elevate what they're able to do because of the resourcing from their youth pastors at the other campuses, as well as that core team. That their whole job is going to be to support your staff in those areas.
I don't really think that speaks to what are we, you're talking about the future, and that may be good, but what are you going to do now that you've lost the familiar face? Dave, you were in a young person's group. If you had disappeared, what would be the effect when you disappeared? it would have hurt that group. And that's what you have with all the staff leaving.
It's painful when somebody leaves. When I left 242, I think there were some people that thought, oh goodness, you know, he built this thing, now he's going to leave. I think I think any time, and this could be, I think anytime you build a ministry, anytime you build a church, anytime you build a campus, anytime you build it around a person, that's about the weakest structure you could have. So I have not been feet on the ground. I love the pastoral. I love the relationships that you have with staff. But if staff here have made, I don't know, but if staff here have designed something that if they are gone, it all hinged on them, then it wasn't very strong.
Wow.
So I would love.
Wow.
Why didn't they bring it to the congregation before he caught a machete?
Because they are seeing the person and interacting. I'm not saying they're building it around them. I'm saying the interaction with a known person is very critical, especially in this COVID environment.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe we could keep talking through it. Like I said, I hesitate to say that. I mean, my kids are experiencing some of that. They had relationship with people at their church that they loved in Michigan, and now we're watching, you know, what that's like to make that transition. It's a tough transition. Mom and Dad are stepping up, and we've been really, you know, fortunate that we've had a couple coming here. Is, you know, will those relationships happen? Will our kids thrive? So far, it's been a challenge, but I'm starting to see that happen. So I pray that happens here.
All right, again, I'm so sorry, guys, but again, Dave will come right here afterwards, and he'll stay as long as you need to stay, as long as I believe some of our elders will be here as well, and senior leaders. And but just want to send us off just with a prayer. If you guys just are willing, just bow your heads as we just conclude. Say, God, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Where there's darkness, light. Where there's sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, and to be loved as to love. For in giving, it is in giving we receive, and it's in parting that we are parting, and in dying that we're born to eternal life. O God, even in times like this, may you build your church. We know you can. It's in the powerful name of our Savior we pray. Amen. Thank you, guys.
We'll wait.
Why can't you just keep on with the question?
Leave the mic on.
Leave the mic on so we can hear.
Just keep going. Let people go if they want.
The people that want to go can go.
Yeah, and if people want to come back tomorrow night, we will have another session as well. So, again, Dave will stay around tonight, and we will have another session tomorrow night.
Keep the mic on. We want to hear the questions that people ask.
You can turn it off.
Steve, I think you can.
Hmm?